Welcome to today's webinar, How to Make Your 2017 IT Resolutions a Reality. My name is Nick Thompson, and I'll be your host today. Let's take a look at our agenda and what we'll be covering. First, we're going to do just a brief overview of Jamf, just to make sure everyone's familiar with our company and our products. Then we will talk about preparing for more Apple devices. So this is kind of our thesis here is that we see Apple devices growing in organizations, and then we're going to look at some stories from other folks in the industry, and hopefully that will serve as some inspiration to derive some resolutions, IT resolutions for the following year here for you. And then we'll wrap up by talking about how to deliver a better Apple experience for your users and some next steps. So let's dive into our first topic here, just an overview of Jamf. So again, if you're not familiar with us, our company is called Jamf, and our mission here is to help organizations succeed with Apple. And we do this with our two products, and they're called Jamf Now and Jamf Pro. Jamf Now is really simple mobile device management. It's designed for smaller organizations that might not have an IT department, which is why we say no IT is required for Jamf Now. Jamf Pro, on the other hand, of course, is Apple management for IT pros. And that's what we're going to be focusing on for today's presentation. Jamf Pro really lets you manage Mac and iOS through the entire life cycle of these devices, from getting them into the hands of your users via deployment methods, configuring all the different settings that should be appropriate on those devices, populating them with the apps your users need to be productive, all while gathering inventory data of these devices, and of course making sure they're secure and providing your users a great way to get the things that they need. So this is Jamf Pro, and Jamf Pro can either be hosted in the cloud or via an on-premise server. Of course, we see a lot of people choosing the cloud option. It's really an agent that gets installed on your client's Macs, but it also uses Apple's MDM spec to perform all of the different client management aspects that you want to do for both Macs and iOS devices. We play nicely with others, meaning we integrate with sort of all the different things that you might have in your environment already, from Active Directory, single sign-on, SCCM, and more. And, of course, we work great with Apple's deployment programs. We also rebranded here recently. This used to be called Casper Suite. So if you might remember that name or hear that name out in the marketplace, that's us. Casper Suite used to be the product name. We've simplified it now. It's just called Jamf Pro. Along with Jamf Pro, we also include a self-service app catalog, and this is really nice. We'll be touching on this a little bit later on too, but this is really just a native Mac or iOS app that comes as part of Jamf, and it's really a spot for you as IT to populate it with all the different assets that you want for your users. And these could be things from apps and printers and scripts and really just a whole lot more. And what's really cool, too, is your users don't need to be admins to do anything in here. So that's a little bit about Jamf Pro and self-service. I'll note this is version 10 that I'm showing off on here, and version 10 is shipping sometime in 2017. We're currently in version 9, so I want to give a little preview of that as well, too, for everyone. Okay. So let's talk about IT resolutions, and to start off again, our thesis is that you need to prepare for more Apple devices on your network because we see Apple devices growing. We see it through a survey that we've done here every year where we ask organizations what sort of growth do you expect out of these devices year over year? And this was some results here of how much Mac is growing in the enterprise, how much iPhone is growing, and how much iPad is growing. So the bottom line is these devices are exploding. We also see another trend happening too, and that trend is all around user choice. And we see that trend being driven by some of the demographics that are out there in the industry. And so one stat that we look to is millennial workers. These are folks that are born between 1980 and 2000. And there's now 46 million millennials in the U.S. workforce. And a lot of these folks, when they went to school or when growing up, they grew up on the Mac. They grew up using Apple devices. This was a great article from a few years back where 70% of college freshmen were choosing to use Mac. And hopefully now they've all graduated and are entering the workforce, but they're expecting to use the devices that they are familiar with. And we see that with a couple of other reports out there in the industry. This is a great one from PwC that found, just about 60% of those surveyed said that an employer is providing state-of-the-art technology was important to them when considering a job, while 78% said access to the technology that they like to use makes them more effective at work. So, we see organizations either saying, great, we can either ignore this or we can embrace it. It's important to know that applying this doesn't have to be to every single employee, but it's nice because Apple's really making this easy to do for organizations because we want our users to be comfortable with the devices that they want to use. But it also means we can't just apply the Windows processes that we're used to for Macs. So that leads me to the 6 topics that we're going to talk about for IT resolutions, how to prepare for all of these new devices coming onto your network here. The first one is look at your infrastructure. Upgrading your server infrastructure. If you're already a Jamf customer, that means looking at how do you distribute packages. And we'll explore a great story about a customer, how they upgraded their infrastructure. Next one is signing up for Apple's deployment programs. And by the deployment programs, I mean these 2 programs here, Device Enrollment Program, DEP, and Volume Purchase Program, VPP. If you are doing anything with Apple devices and you have not signed up for these, sign up for them right away. And we'll discuss how one company, how this really, really helped them. If you're using Jamf already and you're not using self-service, this is a wonderful tool that you can really take a lot of advantage of. And so again, we'll talk about a customer here who is doing some really interesting things with self-service. Take this time to improve some of your security measures that you have. You probably have some great security tools in place, such as identity services, and you'd want to see how those can fit into your client Macs that you have out there already. You also probably have a lot of other tools out there, maybe things that are collecting inventory data, and you want to see how these can also play a part of all your Macs and managing them with Jamf. And finally, we'll look at how to improve some Wi-Fi conditions, specifically around network access control. So these are the 6 topics that I'd like to explore that could hopefully inspire some resolutions here for you for next year. So let's dive into them. And I should point out, these are all stories from our Jamf Nation User Conference, or JNUC as we call it. And just a quick shameless plug for this. This is a wonderful annual conference that we hold in Minneapolis every year in the October timeframe. And last year we had about 1,200 attendees. We've already opened up registration for next year, again in October. If you are interested in these topics at all and learning from these people like these, highly recommend that you look to attend our conference next year. So let's get started with these 6 stories. The first one that I want to highlight is from Foursquare. If you're not familiar with Foursquare, it's a great app that lets you check into places. Really wonderful for social networking. And this is Jordan. Jordan spoke at our Jamf Nation user conference, and he was talking about a problem that Foursquare was having. And that problem that Foursquare was having is that they were growing fast. They're originally based out of San Francisco, but they also had an office in New York. But they were growing fast, and they were hiring a lot more remote employees that needed support. But Foursquare had all of their distribution points just in their local offices. So they needed to figure out a way to scale this, to be able to distribute software to all of their remote employees, even if they were not in an official office. So they looked to their network infrastructure. And their solution that they found was that they transitioned all of their distribution points and the Jamf Pro server to AWS, to Amazon Web Services, in order to be more flexible and to better support their remote employees. So they did this through, obviously over a period of time, and I'll recommend watching their entire video to go into the details of it. But what's nice is that they were able to do this so that they could better distribute packages to all of their remote employees. Of course, the key takeaway here is look at your own network infrastructure and consider some of the cloud solutions out there. How this ties into Jamf is, Jamf works with AWS, with Rackspace, with Akamai, all right out of the box to have those be a distribution point for you. So if you're currently just using local distribution points, and if you have a relationship with either of these 3, you can start using them right away to upload your software packages and then have those be downloaded by your users when you deploy them. Of course, we here at Jamf, we also have a cloud hosting solution too. It's just called Jamf Cloud Distribution Service, which would let you upload packages to our service and have it be distributed that way too. If you are, of course, have a bunch of local offices, another great thing to look at putting into place is a caching server to help speed up some of those local downloads here for you. So this is the first one to inspire some resolutions for next year, is look at your network infrastructure and leverage the cloud. Next story I want to highlight is IBM. This is Fletcher Previn. He spoke again at JNUC. He's their VP of Workplace as a Service, and he talked about how IBM implemented a user choice program about a year and a half ago, and since then they now have over 100,000 Macs, making them the largest Mac deployment on the planet. And to get there, of course, they had to address a lot of challenges. And one of the key challenges that they were addressing is how do they find a way to seamlessly distribute Macs to all of their employees while ensuring that IBMers have a productive environment. And this is a great slide that Fletcher shared during that presentation about moving away from imaging. They determined that imaging was not going to work for this, that there could be a better way to do it. Instead of having to buy machines and then preload them with a whole bunch of stuff and store them in a warehouse where everything's just sort of depreciating and software's getting old, they looked to Apple's device enrollment program to solve this, to no longer image Macs at all, but instead ship them directly to the end user. So the end user opens them up for the first time, it automatically enrolls into Jamf, and it grabs all of the different things that it needs to be provisioned and to be managed. So, of course, device enrollment program can work on much smaller scales than 100,000 Macs. You can use them for you can use it for your deployments of all new Macs as well too. So the key takeaway from IBM here is to utilize Apple's deployment programs to wirelessly provision your Macs. And how this ties into to Jamf here, of course, is we integrate with device enrollment program and volume purchase program. And this really allows for that true zero-touch deployment. You as IT do not need to touch these devices at all. So you can send Macs, iPads, and iPhones directly to your users without them having to touch it at all. And of course, if you haven't already, sign up for these programs. They're completely free. You just have to go through a little bit of an enrollment process with Apple. You can go to deploy.apple.com to get started with these. So that's the second story here. IBM, their user choice program, and utilizing device enrollment program. Third story I want to highlight here is University of Waikato. And this is Paul. And again, Paul spoke at JNUC. And they were doing some interesting things. They of course, being a school, need to be a little bit more locked down just because of students and faculty. He didn't want them messing around with kind of everything on their devices, on their Macs. So he needed to restrict admin access, but he also wanted users to get the things that they needed. So this was their problem is that they had all these escalating support requirements, but they don't allow their users to be admins, and a lot of these things require a user to be admin to do that. But so they didn't want to scale up their support people. They wanted to empower their users, but while still retaining control. So what did they do? Well, they looked to self-service. They used Jamf self-service to handle all of their operating system updates and software patches. Plus, they went beyond that and they started doing some really unique support things in here. They added scripts and they added temporary admin access into self-service. So a user can just go to self-service and run a script that does a lot of complex things like flushing the caches and repairing disk permissions. Of course, the user doesn't need to know that's actually happening. All they need to know is they're clicking on one button and things are taking care of it themselves. So a great takeaway from their story here is start using self-service if you're not using it already, or improve the self-service that you already have to not only install software, but to also provide support. Of course, this ties in directly with Jamf because it's our product, and it is the place where you can populate with pre-approved software. Again, your users do not have to be admins to run these things. That's why they were able to reduce the amount of support tickets that they were bringing in, because they kept their users as standard users, but they populated it with all the things that they needed. And again, go beyond just the package installs by putting in some support scripts that you can build into there. So that's our third story, University of Waikato and how they leveraged self-service. Our fourth story is all about single sign-on, and this was actually a great presentation by one of our own, Bill Smith. He's a professional service engineer here, and he discussed about how Jamf is working with single sign-on providers so that you can have your users sign into self-service, or you could log into into the Jamf Pro server all using single sign-on. So you may have this particular problem. Your organization already uses an identity provider for SSO, and you want your users to use that login for Jamf resources, for resources that you are populating in self-service. So the solution here, of course, is, well, we now integrate with single sign-on using the SAML 2.0 protocol to leverage identity services on your network. What does this mean? Well, it really means you're adding an extra layer of security and, frankly, simplicity for your users by integrating with single sign-on. And we work with all sorts of popular identity providers out there. We work with Google Apps, we work with Okta, Ping, OneLogin, and a couple more. And you can configure single sign-on to work with self-service or the Jamf Pro server. So it makes it just a lot easier for your users to remember just that one password. And we see a lot of organizations shifting away from the mindset of using Active Directory binding to take care of this stuff to identity providers. So instead of leveraging Active Directory to manage all your user settings and to manage your user level permissions, consider moving over to an identity provider. As a side note, we here at Jamf, we use Okta, and it's really great because we can just simply log into all the resources that we need, and if IT needs to remove somebody's access, they simply remove them from Okta. We don't have to worry about any sort of directory bindings. So that's the fourth story, single sign-on. Fifth story I want to highlight is ServiceNow. And this is Rebecca. She also spoke at our user conference. And she talked about how ServiceNow is using Jamf to manage their Macs internally. But they're also worked with us to help create a plugin that allows them to sync inventory data from Jamf Pro into ServiceNow. And the problem that they kind of identified was that Macs are growing, but they already had something in place for inventory management, which of course is ServiceNow. They use their own internal tool, and their solution was to work with us, and we helped create a plugin that integrates Jamf Pro with ServiceNow. So you can actually get this from the ServiceNow App Store, and it will take all of your inventory data that's in Jamf Pro and sync it into ServiceNow. So you have one master record of everything there. In addition to syncing inventory data, we also have built out a really great workflow for those that do their orchestration feature, automating software installations, which means a user could go into self-service. They could request something using the ServiceNow platform. We built a little plugin into self-service, and that software, once approved by IT, can just automatically show up in self-service. So the user just clicks once and starts downloading it. Now, of course, the key takeaway here for this is, look for integrations for your existing services that can gather your inventory in one place. In fact, Jamf, beyond ServiceNow, we also have a plugin that works with SCCM that does something similar by gathering all that inventory data in one place. Of course, if you use ServiceNow, we have that one step more that lets you automate software installations after approving them through IT. So that's the fifth story here, ServiceNow and integrating with some of the existing stuff that you have. Our sixth and final story here is from Aquinas College. And John spoke all about his wireless network and some problems that he was having with specifically around network access control. They had a guest network, and then they had a couple of other sub networks, and it was just getting out of control for them. And so they needed a way to restrict down their network to devices that were under management. And they needed to tie sort of all of these different things together. They needed to tie together the network management, device management, directory, and their certificates. So what did they do? Well, they looked to our integration with Cisco ICE. So Aquinas would really kind of put their users first by integrating these two because it controls the network access layer and it provides network security so that users don't have to worry about installing a certificate all the time. They don't have to worry about providing an updated password all the time. They can just have it be automatically handled for them. So a great key takeaway here from Aquinas' story is look to integrate your Cisco network with Jamf Pro. And we do integrate great with Cisco ICE for that network access control layer. If you have mobile devices, we also integrate with the fast lane and their quality of service markings so that you can prioritize apps on your network. And the network access control works as such as any sort of unmanaged device will just simply be redirected back to your enrollment page over and over. So those are the 6 stories. I highly encourage you to watch them all on jamf.com as they're really great inspirations for creating a wonderful resolution or a great project for you to look at in the new year here, from your network infrastructure to utilizing Apple's deployment programs, improving your self-service or getting that up and running, integrating with single sign-on, integrating with other services like ServiceNow and SCCM, and of course improving your network conditions too. So I'll wrap it up here with what does it mean then to deliver that better Apple experience for your users? Well, it really means putting the user at the center, not the device at the center. And it all starts in the box. It starts with that device enrollment program, that experience of the user being able to just simply open it up and have it be automatically configured for them. It means supporting all the new operating systems and features right away that Apple puts out. It means leveraging Apple's unique capabilities as opposed to having to play to the lowest common denominator. And it means embracing the native Apple experience. And we believe that Jamf Pro is really the tool to do exactly that. So next steps here for you. First off, highly recommend reach out to us, contact us to get started. We've got sales and engineers folks all across the globe that love to talk to customers about what their environment looks like and to help really tailor a solution specifically for them. You can learn more by going to our webinars page and watching some of our past webinars. Some are a little bit more technical if you want to dive into those. And of course, check out our Jamf Nation user conference, or Jamf Nation user forum here, where you can exchange ideas with all sorts of great folks around the world about how they are managing Apple devices in their environment. Lastly, somebody asked me, well, hey, Nick, what's your IT resolution for 2017? Well, I like to stick with a very common one here. My IT resolution is 1920 by 1080. There's my one lame joke here policy for the webinar. All right, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate you tuning in. And with that concludes the presentation.